So, in the last lecture, we have already completed the first part of this chapter, nervous coordination. Today, we have turned towards the next part of this chapter, and this part is the chemical coordination or endocrine system. So, the body of the animal becomes formed by means of the cells and the different organs. The cell and the organs becomes communicate with each other by means of the chemical signals, and these chemical signals formed in the body of such animals by means of four types, and these chemical signals are endocrines, that means the cells release secretion to stimulate itself. ॲटो मीन्स स्वयं, स्वतः, की स्वतः ती सेल जी आहे त्या सेलमध्ये असे एक सिक्रेशन निर्माण होतं की साधारणपणे त्या सिक्रेशनमुळं ती स्वतः सेल तिचं कार्य करायला स्टिम्युलेट होते, उत्तेजित होते. Then next signal is the paracrine. So the first is the endocrine, second one is the paracrine. Paracrine means para. Cells release secretion to stimulate neighboring cell. म्हणजे सेल जे काही केमिकल सिक्रेशन सिक्रेट करणार आहे त्याच्यामुळं त्या पेशीच्या शेजारची पेशी उत्तेजित होणार आहे. देन दी थर्ड वन इज दी एंडोक्राइन. सो दिस इज अगेन व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट because any cell have to secrete such type of the secretion to stimulate the distant cells. Okay, that means the cells becomes present by means of the away from the first host cell, and that secretion of that cell is targeted that distant cell, and this signal is known as the endocrine signal. One more, fourth signal is also produced by the animal for the communication, and this signal is the pheromones, that means the secretion of any chemical substance. That means the animal secreted the chemical secretion which change the other animals behavior. की एक प्राणी अशा प्रकार सिक्रेशन सिक्रेट करतो की त्या सिक्रेशनमुळं सेम स्पेसीमधील प्राण्याच्या शरीरात काही किंवा त्याच्या वर्तनात काही बदल होतात, बिहेवियरमध्ये बदल होतात. ते जे सिक्रेशन असते त्या सिक्रेशनला आम्ही फेरोमोनाज म्हणतो. जनरल दिस फेरोमोनाज केमिकल सिक्रेशन बिकम्स eliminated from the body on the ground in the form of the urine, in the form of the tears, in the form of the feces, or maybe the smell. So these animals are the rabbits, bears, tigers, wasps, ant, or honeybees. So different types of the signals are produced in the body, and due to this, these animals' body consists of the cell or the same species of the animals becomes stimulated. So this function takes place only and only by means of the chemical coordination between them. Actually, in the higher animals, the complex body organization is present. Due to this, in addition to that nervous coordination, there is need of the chemical coordination, no doubt. So the chemical coordination is carried out by secretion of the ductless gland. Okay, ductless, that means in the multicellular animals body there have been present the different glands. Some glands have to secrete its secretion and carry along with the ducts or the tubule throughout the body, but some glands have to secrete its chemical secretion, and this secretion scattered or the carry throughout the body without duct शिवाय कुठल्याही ट्यूब शिवाय ते जे काय द्रव पदार्थ सिक्रेट झालेले त्या ग्रंथीमधून ते संपूर्ण शरीरात सोडणे किंवा संपूर्ण शरीरात सर्क्युलेट करणे, हे काम ज्या साधारणपणे सिस्टीममुळे आपल्या शरीरात होतं त्या सिस्टीमला आम्ही एंडोक्राइन सिस्टीम म्हणतो. आणि एंडोक्राइन सिस्टीममध्ये भाग घेणाऱ्या ज्या ग्रंथी असतात त्यांना एंडोक्राइन ग्लँड म्हणतो. एंडो मीन्स इनसाइड, क्राइन मीन्स सिक्रेटेड, की शरीराच्या आत सिक्रेट काहीतरी करणाऱ्या ग्रंथी आहे. तर जनरली these endocrine glands are the special glands without ducts and release their secretion directly in the blood. They secrete its secretion, and especially the secretion is known as the hormone. This is again very important. So what is meant by hormone in Marathi? Sampreraka, which are called as chemical messengers. Actually, these endocrine glands, along with nervous system, control and coordinate body functions and maintain the homeostasis, no doubt. So, the study of the endocrine gland and its action of their hormones is called as endocrinology. In addition to this endocrinology is very first time studied by the scientist Thomas Edison. That's why this Thomas Edison is was known as the father of the endocrinology. So the endocrine gland have to secrete the hormone, and these hormones becomes very important. That means the perform its function in that particular system. So the hormones are chemical substances secreted by in small amount. आता हे हार्मोन आहे ते कसे असतात, नाही म्हणत तर केमिकल सबस्टन्सेस आहेत, आणि ते बऱ्यापैकी काय होतात तर स्मॉल अमाऊंटमध्ये सिक्रेट होत असतात. पण असे स्मॉल अमाऊंटमध्ये सिक्रेट होणारे जे काय केमिकल सबस्टन्स म्हणून हार्मोन्स आहेत, हे हक्सले नावाच्या शास्त्रज्ञान पहिल्यांदा साधारणपणे ते शोधून काढण्याचा प्रयत्न केला. ॲक्च्युली द नेम हार्मोन इज गिवन बाय दी स्टार्लिंग, and the Huxley called us a type of the chemical secretion as a hormone or as a chemical messenger. So hormones are meant for communication and coordination. The earliest known isolated hormone is insulin. तर इन्सुलिन हे पहिलं हार्मोन आहे आयसोलेटेड केलेलं. आता ॲक्च्युली in the human body, the endocrine system is present. Along with this endocrine system, some major endocrine glands are present, and these endocrine glands are actually the endocrine glands are like this in female or in male. This is the thyroid gland in the neck region, thymus on the dorsal side of the heart region, adrenal gland on the kidney region, then the pancreas, that means between the stomach and the duodenum or the ovaries in the female. Then in the male, again the thyroid gland, neck, thymus, adrenal gland, pancreas or the testes as a gonad in the male. That means the endocrine system which is present in the human being have been consist of such type of the some major endocrine glands here, male or the female. So this major after the study of this major endocrine gland, we have turned toward the properties of the hormone. So actually the hormones which are secreted by the endocrine glands have been consist of its specific properties, and these properties are the hormones are directly released in the blood. There will no requirement of any duct for the releasing in the blood. Then they have produced in response to specific stimulus. एखादा जो काही स्टिम्युलस असतो, उत्तेजित करणारी जी काही गोष्ट असते ती घडली की हार्मोन त्या उत्तेजनाला रिस्पॉन्स देतात आणि मग ते सिक्रेट होतं. दे आर प्रोड्युस्ड इन वन ऑर्गन and shows their effect on the distant or the target organ. Mostly hormones are water soluble and some are fat soluble. Hormones are not stored in the body. हे हार्मोन्स एकतर मिनिमम क्वांटिटीमध्ये ते सिक्रेट होतात संप्रेरक, ते आपल्या शरीरामध्ये साठवून ठेवली जात नाहीत. ॲक्च्युली मोस्टली these hormones which are secreted in the human body may be secreted by means of the excessive or maybe minor in secretion. This excessiveness or the minorness of that hormone secreted in the human body have been caused the different diseases. That means the excessiveness of the hormone or the deficiency of the hormone, and this deficiency and the excessiveness of the hormone have to show the different disorder in the human being. That's why these hormones as a chemical messenger secreted in the human body is very important. Actually, these hormones secreted in human body have been consist of its chemical nature, as maybe hormones are amines like the thyroxine, hormones are peptide like the oxytocin, ADH, antidiuretic hormone, or GRH. Then protein hormones, and protein consisting hormones are insulin, glucagon, TSH, FSH, LTH, GH, relaxin. So such type of the different hormones are the protein hormones. Then the fatty acid derivatives, prostaglandin, then the steroid hormone, then the steroid hormones which are secreted in the body are the estrogen, testosterone, androgens, some gas, nitric oxides. So this is the chemical nature of this hormone. So the hormones are very important secretion in the endocrine system or the chemical coordination system. Then we have turned toward the next, that is the part of this chapter, and this part is the mechanism of the hormone action. So how the hormone is secreted by a particular gland have been affected on the target organ. Now how this mechanism of that particular, that means the hormone, have been takes place in the body. So the first mechanism, so the mechanism of the hormone, actually hormones released in very small quantity we have studied. Then they produce their effect on the target organ as a cell by binding to the hormone receptors. Then the hormone receptors may be on the cell membrane or may be intracellular, and the hormones receptor complex are formed, and this leads to biochemical and the physiological reaction or some responses in the body. So the first response or the first mode of the hormone action through the membrane receptor. So the hormone like catechol amines, then the peptide and polypeptide hormones are not lipid soluble. Okay, so therefore they cannot enter their target cell through a plasma membrane. That's why these non-steroid water soluble hormones interact with surface receptor. This is the, that means the hormone, and the hormone like the FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and this is the membrane of the ovarian follicle. So this hormone is affected on this membrane of ovarian follicle. Then they have been required the surface receptor here. So this surface receptor actually present in the membrane of the particular ovarian cell have to initiate metabolic activity, and molecules of the amino acid derivative or peptide hormone binds to specific receptor molecule. So this hormone consists of the some peptide derivative have been received by this receptor which is already present on the ovarian cell membrane, and they have to form the hormone receptor complex here. Hormone receptor complex is formed here. Then this hormone receptor complex already formed on the site of this membrane due to the release of enzyme adenylate cyclase from the receptor site. Here the receptor site is present, this site secrete this hormone, this enzyme. This enzyme have to form the hormone receptor complex on this membrane. Then this, the hormone receptor complex have to response, the particular hormone coming outside on the cell membrane, and this response is the first response. Then this, that means the adenylate cyclase enzyme forms cyclic AMP from the ATP of the cell. This cyclic AMP activate enzymatic action. The hormone acts as the first messenger and cyclic AMP as the secondary messenger. Okay. Actually, other kind of the second messengers which are also involved in this reaction are the calcium or maybe the IP3 inositol triphosphate. So the particular, that means the mode of the action of the hormone through the membrane have been takes place by means of the receptor. That means the receptor which are present on the cell membrane or the ovarian membrane, and that's why the FSH as a non-steroid water soluble hormone interact into the ovarian wall, and the particular response, first or the second response with the help of the calcium cyclic AMP over IP3 takes place to form some biochemical responses into the ovary, and afterwards some physiological responses in the ovary as a ovarian growth or maybe any response. So in this way, the external, that means the FSH follicle stimulating hormone, which is acted on the ovary to perform its function. So that's why this is the first mode of the hormone action. The second mode of the hormone action is also, that means the observed in the particular, that means the living cells, and this is the intracellular receptor. So actually this intracellular receptor here, so this is the example of the intracellular receptor. So the steroid and the thyroid hormones are the lipid soluble hormones, and they are easily passed through the plasma membrane. So this is the plasma membrane of the uterine wall, no doubt, and these are the hormones, and hormones are the steroid or lipid soluble hormones, and these are the estrogen. So in the cytoplasm they bind the specific intracellular receptor protein, forming a hormone receptor complex. Actually this estrogen is the lipid soluble, and that's why this, that means the hormone, very easily entered via uterine wall or the plasma membrane of the uterus into the cell, and the cytoplasm of the cell consists of the particular, that means the DNAs, and this hormone have been enter into the cell, and at that time they have been bind with specific intracellular receptor proteins, forming the hormone receptor complex. So hormone enter into the cell via PM, via the plasma membrane, enter into the nucleus, and here they have to form the inter receptor hormone complex. Actually this specific regulatory site of the receptor complex present on the DNA. In the nucleus the DNAs are present, and here the complex receptor site is formed, and the activated genes which are present on the DNA becomes transcripts. So this complex, this is the DNA having some activated gene. These genes become transcript on mRNA, and which direct perform the synthesis of protein, and this protein synthesis is the one of the process takes place in the cell, is the physiological process, and this process is very important for the tissue growth and the differentiation of the body. That's why this particular hormone secreted in the body, then they have been enter via uterine wall into the cell via nuclear membrane into the nucleus. They have to form the receptor hormone complex, and they have transfer on the DNA, then transcript on mRNA. mRNA have to produce the protein, and the protein production is very important, and this is the physiological response takes place in the cell to form the protein, and protein is very important for the tissue growth and differentiation. So these different reactions which are takes place by means of the intracellular in mode due to the intracellular reception. So these are the two mode of the receptions which are takes place by the hormone in the body. Then we have turned toward the next part of this chapter, and this part is the major endocrine glands which are present in the human body. So first gland is the hypothalamus gland. So this is the hypothalamus. Actually this gland is endodermal in origin and it is located. So this is the actually this actually hypothalamus, this that means the pink region. This pink region is known as hypothalamus. Actually hypothalamus is the part this part is present on the floor of the diencephalon. Actually this is the hypothalamus, is the endocrine part of the human brain, and which is present on the floor of the diencephalon. Actually it maintains the homeostasis. It controls the secretory activity of the pituitary gland, because on the hypothalamus again the next very important endocrine gland is present on the pituitary gland, and the different secretory activity of the pituitary gland is controlled by the hypothalamus. So the all hormones of hypothalamus are peptide, and they are secreted by the neurosecretory cells. So they are called as neurohormone. That means the hormones which are secreted by the hypothalamus are known as neurohormones, and the hormones may be ADH or maybe the oxytocin. Okay, ADH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. Then the next, that means the very important again gland which is present as an endocrine gland, and this gland is the pituitary gland. So below the hypothalamus, this is the pituitary gland. So this pituitary gland, it is known as master gland because all other endocrine glands are under the control of the pituitary gland. So pituitary itself, so this is the pituitary gland. So pituitary itself is under the control of the hypothalamus, no doubt, and the pituitary is located in the ventral part. Location of the pituitary is the ventral part here. This is the ventral part. So the ventral part of the brain, this is the brain, and this is the ventral part. So ventral part of the brain below the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland is present. It is attached to the hypothalamus by the stalk. So with the help of the stalk or the peduncle, this pituitary gland, peanut like a very small gland, attached to the hypothalamus, just behind the optic chiasma. So it is well protected in the depression of the sphenoid bone. So this skull itself having consist of the specific bone or the bone structures. One of the bone is the sphenoid bone, and this sphenoid bone have been consist of the specific depression, khach aste, and this depression have been protected the specific pituitary gland here. So स्कल हा स्कलचा भाग आहे, याच्यामध्ये बोनी स्पिनॉइड बोन भाग आहे. स्पिनॉइड बोन itself have to form the depression. The depression is also known as the sella turcica, and in the sella turcica the pituitary gland is protected. So it is ector the endodermal in origin and developed from nervous tissue. So this pituitary gland is ector endodermal origin and they are to formed by the nervous tissue. So this is the pituitary gland, or it is known as the hypophysis. So the more information about this pituitary gland we have learned in the next lecture.